Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Easy English Bible Study podcast. My name is David Gray, and together we're going to study the Bible, and I will give some comments in easy to understand English. Okay, let's get started. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today we're looking at the Sunday that's called the Day of Pentecost or Pentecost. The Day of Pentecost or Pentecost. Okay, that's this Sunday. And the reading we're doing is we're not going to do a gospel reading this week. We're going to do the reading from the book of Acts because, hey, this is about Pentecost and the um, the reading in Acts is all about that. So let's go to the book of Acts, chapter 2, verses 1 to 21. The book of Acts, chapter 2, verses 1 to 21. Okay, so I'll start reading. When the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. Suddenly, a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. All right, that's the first paragraph of the reading. Let's go back, okay, to verse 1. When the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. Okay, Pentecost is the Greek name, and it means 50th. 50th. And that is the 50th day in the Jewish holidays. That was the 50th day after Passover. This day was also called the Festival of Weeks, and also it's called in Hebrew Shavuot. Shavuot. And so those are all the different names, but it celebrates the harvest and it's connected to God giving the law to Moses. Okay, so celebrates the harvest when we collect all the food. Well, here it's the wheat, collecting the wheat in the harvest, at harvest time. Do you know what harvest means? Like in the northern hemisphere, in Canada, is like in countries like Canada, the United States, or Japan. In the fall, harvest time might be in October or November when you collect all the foods from the ground. So, for example, wheat or rice or apples and grapes and so on. That's harvest time. So that's what they were celebrating. And in Greek, again, the name of the festival is Pentecost for the 50th day after Passover. And we remember that Jesus died around Passover. So this is 50 days later. Suddenly, verse 2 again, let's go back to verse 2. Suddenly, a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. So the wind is strong, and the wind it was a wind, but it also symbolizes the Spirit of God and the presence of God. Verse 3, they saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each of them. So tongues of fire or flames of fire. So here we have fire. We had wind, now we have fire, and fire, shows the holiness of God. And it symbolizes many things, including, again, God's presence. Verse 4, all of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. Okay, so let's talk about that. So remember when Jesus knew he was going to die, he told the disciples that he will send a comforter, an advocate to help them. He will send his Holy Spirit to help them. And he also promised power from on high, power from above, power from heaven to be with them. So Jesus promised these things to them because, well, because he was going to give it to them, but also because he was leaving and he wanted them to know that God is still with them. So here we have, they are filled with the Holy Spirit, and Jesus has kept his promise. And they began to speak in other tongues. Other tongues is like other languages. In English, we sometimes say your mother tongue, your mother language, as the Spirit enabled them. Enable, make able, made it so that they could do this. So the Holy Spirit made it possible for them to speak in many languages. That's amazing. Now, for this podcast, we're learning English. Wouldn't it be great if the Holy Spirit could help us speak English even better? Verse 5. Now there were staying in Jerusalem God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. Okay, so in that general area, there were Jews from all over the place who came to celebrate the festival of weeks, or the festival of Pentecost. Okay, people came for that festival. Verse 6, when they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment because each one heard their own language being spoken. Okay, so there was a big crowd of people who came for the festival, and all these followers of Jesus are speaking in many languages, and so they're bewildered. They can't believe it. It's like, wow, what's happening here? They're hearing their own languages being spoken. Verse 7, utterly amazed, they asked, aren't all these who are speaking Galileans? Then how is it that each of us hears them in our native languages, in our native language? So utterly amazed, they're very amazed, they're very shocked and surprised that they're hearing their languages, because they know that these people are from the same area, from Galilee, and yet how is it they can speak all these different languages? Wow. So who are these people? Where are they from? Verse 9. So they're Parthians, Medes, and Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt, and the parts of Libya near Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Jews and converts to Judaism, Cretans and Arabs. We hear them declaring the wonders of God in our own tongues. So wow, think about all those different places and all those different languages, and they're all hearing the wonderful news of the wonders of God in their own language. Verse 12. Amazed and perplexed, they asked one another, "What does this mean?" So amazed, I think we understand that. Perplexed, kind of like confused, or what is happening here? What does this mean? So many people reacted that way, wondering, what does this mean? This is amazing. Verse 13. Some, however, made fun of them and said, "They have had too much wine." So some just joked about it. It's interesting when God does amazing things. Some will ask, "What does it mean?" And some will just say, they will mock, they will joke, they will not take it seriously. Okay, so now Peter is going to talk to the crowd. Verse 14. Then Peter stood up and with the 11 raised his voice and addressed the crowd. So raise his voice means he spoke louder and addressed the crowd. He spoke to the crowd. Fellow Jews, and all of you who live in Jerusalem, let me explain this to you. Listen carefully to what I say. These people are not drunk, as you suppose. It's only 9 in the morning. Okay, so Peter is telling them, we are not drunk. Drunk is like when you drink too much alcohol, like you drink too much wine. So they're not speaking in all these languages because of drinking. Of course not. Uh, Alcohol can help you a little bit to relax, but it's not going to help you speak another language. Verse 16. No, this is what was spoken by the prophet Joel. Okay, so now Peter is going to quote from the Old Testament, the book of Joel, and it's from chapter 2, verse 28 to 32. So here's the quote, verse 17, 18, 19, 20. Here we go, and 21. Here we go. Verse 17. In the last days, God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. Okay, so this is what's happening now in Pentecost. God promised here in the book of Joel that his spirit would be poured out. Like imagine pouring out water, poured out onto people. God's spirit. I guess it was tongues of fire, right? And who's going to prophesy? Sons, daughters will prophesy. Young men will see visions. Old men will dream dreams. So everyone is involved. Everyone. Verse 18, even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days, and they will prophesy. Okay, so prophesy, speaking words from God. Sometimes it's about the future, sometimes it's about what's happening now, what God says about what's happening now, but words from God, eh? So, wow, again, so young, old, daughters, sons, servants, men, women, that's everybody. God is involving everyone, all people. Verse 19, I will show wonders in the heavens above and signs on the earth below, blood and fire and billows of smoke. So these are all physical signs in nature, in the world, right? The heavens, the skies above, the earth. Verse 20, the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and glorious day of the Lord. Okay, I'm not sure what this is about. Maybe this is about the future when Jesus comes back. I'm not sure. Maybe we should check, eh? Verse 21, and everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. So that's the promise. If you pray to God, if you call to God, if you trust in God, believe in Him, if you believe in God, you will be saved. This is the promise to everyone. So not just to Jewish people, but to all people uh, of all languages. Okay, that's the end of the reading. What an amazing reading. There's so much here. God is, we have a new stage, a new time. Things are being opened up to all people. What a great event. The message of God being opened up in many languages from here. What's interesting from this reading, do you know the story of the Tower of Babel in the Old Testament? Well, that's in Genesis chapter 11. Do you know that story? If you don't, maybe you can read it. The story of the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11 in the Old Testament. And there, the opposite happens. The opposite happens. In that story, people become prideful. They think they can do great things without God, and they build a tower. And then, they all speak one language. And then God sees their pride, that they think they can do things without God. It's very negative. And God sees this and He confuses their languages so that they can't understand each other. And then they are scattered. They are made to live all over the place. And it's the opposite story. This story is about God. They're trying to move up to heaven using their own effort, and they think they're great. Here we have God coming down from heaven, and God, instead of confusing language, God is having people, through a miracle, speak everyone's languages so that everyone can understand. So we've gone from confusion to understanding. And so God, this event is the opposite, really, isn't it? It's a wonderful event. And I think also we have to remember that God planned it because He knew it was this special festival when all these people would be there. So, what's your takeaway from this reading today? There's so many really that you could have. For me, one thing I think about is how the gospel is for everyone. It's a message for all people. And we know that the gospel is being preached in so many languages around the world. But here it starts. Another thing that we learn is that God has a plan, and so He used that time to do that effectively. Jesus promised His Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit came. And another takeaway that I have myself is that they all spoke so strongly, so boldly, so bravely. And this is evidence or proof to show the power of the Holy Spirit. And that's wonderful. But I would like to say that it's also evidence of the resurrection of Jesus. Because you have all these disciples who could be afraid and could be giving up on Jesus, and yet he was alive again, he resurrected, and now we see that through the Holy Spirit, they bravely speak the message of God. So this is wonderful. There's so many takeaways. There's so many things we can learn from this reading. How about you? Did you learn what did you get from this reading today? I wonder what you learned from it. I'd be curious to know. So thank you for listening today and to this special reading of Pentecost. I hope it was beneficial for you and as it was for me. And if you'd like to contact me, you can always email me at easyenglishbiblestudy@gmail.com, easyenglishbiblestudy@gmail.com. And I hope you have a great week. God bless you. And have a wonderful week. Take care. Okay. Bye now.